Okay. All right, let me go back. So again, there's a ton of websites out there with some tips, but Adobe's is pretty simple. You can get the files that are already there, so you don't have to go search for files to actually do. So Adobe's always a good resource. And then I also, you have to start doing your tutorials. There's 2 discussions for tutorials for this unit. There's Illustrator Tutorials 1 and Illustrator Tutorials 2 for discussions. VecTips is a great website. There's tons of tutorials on here that you can do, and it also has a bunch of resources. So the ones that I have my students usually do, if I type it in shapes in the search, see if I can get what, change it on me, shape 1 maybe, or lesson 1 maybe it's called. So there's lesson 1, lesson 2, and it talks about logos too, and using some of the, color picker and stuff like that. So VecTips is a really good spot, just because I know they work, right? Sometimes when you go to tutorial pages and try to complete a tutorial, you'll get to a step, and you have no idea what they're talking about because they use a different version or whatever. These are pretty solid with the correct, like you can start and finish it. Some of it might be in different place, but it tells you what version, I believe at the top, they used. So this one tutorial, they used Adobe Illustrator CS6. So it's kind of old, but it's still stuff you can do in CC right now. All right? So let me see here. Examining, I looked at bad logo design. I'm going to kind of show you this website. So this one up here, you get too much going on, and then the colors are very, I don't even know how to explain those colors. They clash. They'll have a hard time printing those, and it just, you get too much going on. This right here is too small of a print, so when you try to blow it, go down to size for like a business card, it's going to be really hard to see. So you got to think about your scaling of your logo. Will it look good blown up? And will it look good shrunk down? So your font choices are going to be important when it comes to that, which is kind of where we're going to be talking about today. This one is okay. I would say it's okay, but it's too much going on. It's just layers on layers on layers. I would say if they just simplified it a little bit, maybe remove like the background and just did the text with the beer in the background. I don't know if you can see that right here. There's a beer. It would be so much better. It's just too much going on one logo. This one talks about font choices here. I like it, but again, when you look at cursive fonts, it's hard to read from far away. I don't know, there's a dentist on Petranco. I think it's a dentist, because there's like 7,000 dentists on Petranco. But one of it has thin, like, cursive titles for the thing. I have no idea what it says, because it's so thin. They try to use this decorative font, so from the street, I can't read it. Maybe once you get closer, you could read it, but from the street, I cannot read their sign because it's a thin, cursive script. So you're just going to have to watch your fonts. I still use script, but I use like maybe a bolder script or a script that has like it's print kind of and cursive in the same kind of styling. But you got to be careful with your text. And again, you got to think about it. What's it going to look like from all the way from a billboard down to a business card. This next one is another instance of too much going on. I would definitely remove this wood background, and then I would launch my font and probably get rid of like the axe here, or the pickaxe, and maybe, I don't know. I would have to kind of pick apart that one just because there's so much going on that you don't even know what to look at. Some of you probably didn't notice that there was like a cleavers and a pickaxe. You saw the trees, you saw maybe the stake here, but there's too much to look at. I'll go down this one. So one of the things in the rubric is I can tell what your logo is for. Like, does it have meaning? Can I tell that it matches whatever company or business it is? This is Hank's Gourmet Hot Dogs. It's the only way I can tell it's like a food is because it says Gourmet Hot Dogs underneath here. Okay? Try to make your logo look like what it is. I mean, I'm not saying you have to put like a hot dog and put the word Hank's, but again, I think you could play up that a little bit with that logo. Business logos are a little harder because, you know, they're not necessarily like Sprint logo and stuff like that is not really anything. It's not like it's a cell phone, but it's a professional logo. They didn't use a hot dog for a Sprint one, right? But usually you have logos that go by themselves, like McDonald's can stand alone without saying the word McDonald's underneath. But most logos, when they first start out, you have to have the picture and the title of whatever business goes with it because it is not branded yet. So when you first make your logo, I would recommend that you have whatever the company is in the somewhere in your logo design. It could be below it. It could be part of it. But especially when you first become business, you cannot do a standalone Nike swoosh without the word Nike. People do not know what it is yet. Pepsi, they're talking about rebranding here and why was it necessary for Pepsi to rebrand here? With it not being that big of a difference. So again, you'll see a lot of rebranding and then some definitely rebranding failures along the line. Here's the progression of McDonald's. Again, they basically went from complex to the most simplest design ever, which is like, I think the #1 logo I think most people can identify across the world.
The first one, McDonald's barbecue. I don't think
So this one right here is another one of those things about talking about does it match. So this is a sushi place. I like it, except for why is there a campfire flame? That doesn't make sense. Okay, so maybe just removing that and having like the chopsticks and the word sushi. Okay, don't overthink it. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe they have those little things in the middle where you put the meat on it. I don't know.
Oh,
yeah. Yeah, something like that. I don't know. Again, here's another logo. It's trying to use like the microchip background, but again, this is too much. Like it's too abstract almost to understand this electronics. It's because it's an Aries, yeah, it's a RAM. But I think they got too much going on. I would have done a solid color if I did that and not try to use that chip background coming through. I know it's hard to see up there, but it's just too much going on. I think they could have simplified this a little bit better so we understood what it was. Let's see if there's any more. I think that's it. That was it for that. All right, I'm going to show you this video real quick. It is 15 minutes long. I'm sorry, but it's the best video I can show you on the process of designing a logo. Okay, so this is Aaron Draplin. He's actually up in, I think it's Seattle area, and he's pretty world famous about his designs. They're very simple. So I'm going to go ahead and hit play, and we're going to watch that real quick. Maybe, hopefully we have sound.
You're getting the lens cap off that thing from all the professionals here in the shop. But hi, I'm Aaron James Draplin, and welcome to the Draplin Design Company. Here we are. Let's get going. We're the Draplin Design Company. It doesn't just mean do whatever it takes to make cool stuff. And along the way, a full line of student merch, plastic things with DDC all over it, and of course, field notes. It's just a little book. There's some staples and some paper, and nice little edges and rounded corners.
Whatever, notebook paper, whatever.
I am surrounded by tons and tons of things, and I've had to go dig it up in the deadest, weirdest places, places where you have to talk to people, other sketchy stuff like that. And out there in the world, you're digging around, you look at stuff, you're gonna find stuff like that. We're in this world where those programs, they offer you a million options, and you see too much use. And when you go back and you look at this old world, there's just sort of reminders of just a simple little logo, you know, a simple couple little shapes. I like things that worked 40 years ago and work right now in the smack dab of, 2014, right? Okay, you guys, Linda.com has sort of challenged me to make a logo. I picked one called All Base, right? So All Base would be the story goes, if you kind of see, and there's a sort of heritage sort of component where they've been doing business for a lot of years, and slab concrete, right? So, all base concrete foundations, right? So what if they came in and said, we've been doing business for 100 years, and we don't want to look like 2014. We want to look like something maybe our grandparents might have signed off on 50 or 60 years ago. With any logo, just writing the name out.
I cannot tell you the importance of hand sketching. Okay, I cannot draw for the life of me, but I can doodle. I can, especially when it's like you're trying to use a name in your logo. Writing it out in caps, writing it out in lowercase does help, and they're called thumbnail sketches. So a thumbnail sketch is quick sketches of whatever you're working on. In college, I had to do over 100 sketches for anything that I was doing. Because you want to usually just do the first one. You're like, oh, that was good. But if you actually work your way through it, it does make a difference with your outcome.
Lowercase, uppercase. We're just kind of taking a look at, what we're working with here. Now, maybe there's something about it being this heritage quality where you're going to do this kind of handwritten thing. But, you quickly, just this way, kind of say, well, there's maybe something there that we go explore, right? Now, listen, this is sketchy. This is meant to be fast and fun. And just kind of like free. Your hand is freer here than it would be on your Illustrator. Now, of course, you look at that and you kind of say, that A, what if we just make a killer, burly A, And it's this big slab of concrete. There's already colors that come to mind, these grays, and maybe a little bit of earth tone or wet concrete or something. And right there, you already have a color palette. And you start making notes about stuff. So you just kind of say, all right, concrete, grays, and you just sort of writing stuff down, When you make this logo, there's like a sense of you always to pretend that All Base is as big as the biggest competitor, right? But more often than not in my life, they're smaller and crustier, right? And it's designed to elevate them. There's a sort of a subversive quality to that. So when my buddy's in a band company, it's a fight. It's a fight to say, we're not funded, how am I even getting paid, but we're going to make them look as good or even better or more considered than the guys in the major label. Like, that's been my life forever now. So the same thing sort of here, So take a look at, and we've looked at what things look like out there. You see a certain vernacular and a certain flavor. And what's most appropriate for these guys? What if, instead of making some slabs here, and thinking of sediment and layers and things underground and stuff, it's like, when you take a look at that thing and you say, okay, you got a little A happen right there. There's so many ways you can take it. And think of what are the basics of an A? This, and this. Well, if you take that guy, and there's our big old foundation, something's coming out of that thing. Now, listen, I already hit a couple things just in the last 2 minutes that I wouldn't expect it, and that's the magic of a pencil on paper, on field notes, $9.95 for you guys. Come on, get it together.
Scrap paper.
So listen, I love books. You can see behind me I have a big old library here. But to trace back, the things that have been super critical in my half-wit career, it's 2 books here. And this is Kuliyama. Any which one of these pages, there's just, you can see I have beat this thing pretty good, but there's just this sense of there's just a sense of clarity, and I'll just go dig around these things to look at the simplicity. Because listen, first thing to remember, all this has been done before. But yet, any one of these in the right context in 2014, it'll feel just as fresh today. Now, I don't think that it works the same when you take something in 2014 and try to go back there to the dawn of sort of corporate design. So, this is the stuff that I love, corporate identity management. It's just like, man, I mean, corporate's a weird word, especially in this town of Portland, Oregon. But you can't mess with the sort of bedrock of understanding how a logo works all over the world, or let me just see if I can find something cool here. You know, how to handle it. This idea of like, okay, here's this Louisiana Pacific, and then here's this killer logo, and you really got to think like things like trucks. Big trucks, little trucks, size of trucks, size of trucks, and here's how they're going to look. So once you design that logo, and have it just floating on this like PDF, and you're sort of drunk on white space and negative space, it's just floating. Rarely will you see it that way. The way you're going to see it is on some stupid little Instagram in the corner, right? Or, you know, on a guy's business card, or like embroidered on his like sweatshirt or something. That's how you're going to see it. So all times, show context. Show context. Okay, we're going to take a couple of those sketches that we busted up pretty quick, and we're just going to go try to rebuild it. So let's just start. Everything is a basic shape. So take this guy. Remember, Command and Dupe, and pull off to the side.
Dupe means copy. It took me a while.
And then you kind of say, well, I want a little triangle out of my symbols palette. I've got these guys already built for quickness sake. So we're just going to jump in here and kind of say, okay, let's get a color that's kind of weird. And let's make a little line here. Let's be a little separators here. And let's just get these things to snap on these edges, because all we're using is we're just going to try to go make 4 equal parts. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4. So we'll grab these lines and pull them out. We're going to center everything. The top line and bottom line snap to these top and bottom edges. We want to go through and make sure that those little guys are equidistant. There you go. And now
remind me to show you the lines to
align. Click and drag and dupe it. Because here's the thing, is that when you look at that thing, you don't want to go and start tearing this thing apart until you to make sure that you're not going to take a step back. It's to make sure that you've got that thing. Because now we're going to go there, look at that sketch. I'm going to put these other little lines in here, and just real quick, real fast, we're going to click and drag again. I'm going to grab all that stuff and make it white. And like, we've got a logo that we're already starting to build with it, right? Like, look at that. That's starting to work. And then you can quickly take it to the back of the side, group it all, make a tiny little version of it, and then kind of see how they feel. There's already something starting to happen there. Now becomes the fun part. You've got something to work with. Now maybe that top was just a little too much. We can take that little guy and kind of scoot it in a little bit. Say, okay, that's cool. Now pull it off here to the side. Let those guys go white. And then start messing with some of this stuff. Make these big old slabs. So maybe there's an A that's starting to happen. It's kind of getting this kind of pyramid kind of thing going. But now just step back. That's another version right there. That's just a little different than what we would have happen right here. You can kind of see here, I've already built this thing pretty quick. And when you go look at your outline version, all that math is all nice and intact. And you've got it live, always keep it live. Because now if we go grab a piece of type, something's starting to happen already. And it's just some big extended academic grid test. So now to quickly take a look at that thing and say, well, wait a second. I kind of like this one sketch where I had the A kind of working off some of the different pieces back there. Let's go plop one in there. So we'll go grab a little triangle. We can start one right here. And get rid of this guy. We're going to snap it to the bottom of here. And get that thing in there. And bring it down. We'll get rid of this other guy and kind of say, okay, now we're getting into some zones here. You kind of say, all right, maybe it's a little too much. But remember, now we've got those pieces, we can always go back to where they were. So we can go back and say, all right, let's try this real quick. You can take a version over here and just quickly say, well, let's go try it to where we have the triangles on the inside of there also. So some quick ways to do it are just go through,
All right, I'm actually going to stop it here because I want to show you how to use Illustrator more than anything. But you can see that my boards, when I'm working in Illustrator, I have stuff everywhere. Off the page, on the page. Don't be afraid to use your entire Illustrator. Copying and pasting, moving things around. It shouldn't be one and done. Like the really bad habit we have nowadays is the one and done. You get an assignment, you get something, you do it, and you turn it in, and it's done. Okay? When it comes to design, there has to be that design process. I've worked on something for a long time, and then hated it and started all over again. It happens. But you have to be able to let yourself be okay with that, because sometimes you sit there and work on stuff that's forever, and then send it to a client, and they hate it. So then you're like, ah, and then go back to from square one. So I'm going to go ahead and open up Illustrator. Let me see if I can get out of here. Okay, in Illustrator, you're going to see a lot of the same tools as you did in Photoshop, so that helps a little bit. You know, your keys, your text. You have your, selection, so your arrow. I call it the black arrow, but the selection tool. You have the direct selection tool. Those are kind of your two. You have the magic wand, which you saw in Photoshop, and we have shapes like we have in Photoshop. The thing about Illustrator, kind of the biggest thing is, where in Photoshop you do something, it creates a layer for you, right, automatically. Photoshop does not do that. You have to force a layer. If you want to work with layers, you need to say, go to layers and create a new layer. And we will be doing layers in our next project, our typeface portrait. So I'll show you when layers for me work the best, okay? So when you're thinking about logo design, they're simple, right? I'm going to go to File, New. I'm just going to do the 8.5 by 11. The nice thing also, you can come in here and say how many artboards you want. So maybe I want 4 artboards. I'm going to say Create. So now I actually have 4 pieces of paper on the same document. All right? So then, and that's another way. If I want to have different logos, I can have all 4 artboards going. Or sometimes when you're presenting, you can have it all in one file, which is nice to send off to someone. But you can do artboards. Artboards are your pages. Okay, it represents a page. All right. So the first thing I want to show you is the Shape Builder tool. The Shape Builder tool is midway down. It looks like 2 little circles and an arrow, or at least an arrowhead. So, but we got to have shapes in order to use the Shape Builder tool. So I'm going to come in here. I'm going to draw a rectangle. Okay, and then I'm going to come in here, click and hold. I'm going to go to my ellipse tool. I'm going to draw a circle. I'm going to change the color just so you can see what's going on. All right. Now that I have 2 shapes, I can use that Shape Builder tool. Okay, but I have to have both shapes selected. So if you just have one selected and try to use the Shape Builder tool, it's not going to work. So I'm going to highlight both of these, come over to my Shape Builder tool, and I'm going to show you a couple things. One, I could hit Unite. That's just dragging it together to make one big shape. All right? Or I could subtract. The default is the addition. To subtract, I have to hold down Alt on my keyboard, so it turns to a minus. You can see it changes. And I can drag up, and it subtracts the shape. I can't draw for the life of me, but I can make shapes look like something. All right? I can make a cupcake. All right? But it's mostly out of shapes, right? It's, I couldn't draw it freehand. Some people can. But I can turn a shape into whatever I need. All right? So I know in the tutorial it talks about, I'm going to do the A for, I forget what it's for, American or something. So I'm going to put an A in here. I'm going to make it about 200 so I can see it. I'm going to choose a thicker style A. Ugh. Mouse is so sensitive. Okay. Now, I'm not sure if they did this in the tutorial, but this is how I work. Again, there's so many different ways to do this. Okay, I'm going to click on this A, and I'm going to go to Object, Expand, and say OK. What that means, it turns it into an image. It's no longer editable, so I can't go in there and change a font or change a letter or anything. It is now a shape. Okay, I can stretch it out and do what I want. This is the shape. I can change color, but I can't change the font or anything else. So if you're unsure, copy and paste. Have one that's still live if you want to, before you expand it out. Now, the next thing they did was add a star in the middle. Okay, if you click and hold on your shapes, there's the star tool. All right, I'm going to click and drag. I'm going to hold down Shift so it stays. If I don't hold down Shift, it twirls around and does everything. So I'm going to hold down Shift so it stays like unified. Is that correct? All right, and then I'm going to change color just so you can see it. You do not necessarily have to change the color. Okay, I'm only doing it just because you can see it better. I'm going to drag it here. I'm going to go ahead and make it a little bit bigger so it covers up the entire middle section. Okay. I'm going to highlight both of these. I could use that shape builder tool, or I'm going to also show you Pathfinder. So the Pathfinder is under Window. Okay, this is old school. Before shape builder tool came along, this is how you did it. So if you hover over each one of these, they tell you what it is. So it's unite, so you'll unite the shape. This one is subtract, minus the front, so whatever's in front is going to subtract from whatever's in back, and so on and so forth. So again, what I would do is get two shapes, click on them, and see what they do. That's the best way to see it. So I'm going to actually do minus the front. So basically subtracted the star from the A. All right? It's very important that you work with, it shouldn't be moving parts. Okay? You want to be able to subtract it, and you want this to be one piece. This should not be three separate things, like the star and then whatever, not even grouped. It should be a solid, united piece. Okay? Even the target, you know, the target logo, which is like the red band and then the circle and the dot, that should all be one piece. It should not be two things. It gets united, all right? So that's one way. Using your text is a big thing when it comes to logos, playing it up text. Now, normally I just play around when it comes to doing logo design. So I'm going to come in here with my rectangle. All right, I'm going to fill it in. I'm going to give it a different color. All right, and I'm actually going to come in here with my eraser. All right, I'm going to come in here and erase maybe some crazy things. I'm holding down Shift right now, so it actually does very. Otherwise, it could end up being like, okay, but maybe that's what you want to do. And then you can expand this out. And now I have these different parts and pieces, so maybe I don't want this part, maybe I don't want this part, and then I start bringing this in a little bit better, okay, and maybe I start to see something I like. I can change the color on this one to a darker blue, all right, and I was seriously just playing with a square and the eraser tool, all right, but it needs to make sense for whatever you're doing, okay. So maybe I want to turn this into a K because maybe the main letter of my business starts with a K, or maybe I rotate it and make it look like more like a V. But again, it shouldn't just be a random shape for anything. Okay, it has to have some purpose. Either A, you can build it into your actual the word itself, or it makes sense for whatever kind of business it is. So again, that was just using the shape tool and the eraser. And I just doodle, see what happens. This next one I'm going to work on is it's this one right here. Okay, it's called blending, using blending. So you need two lines. I did a curved line, but I'm going to do a straight line right now, just because they're easier to draw. So I need to have a line stroke on here. I'm going to go ahead and make it the line thicker, so we can see what's going on. I'm going to actually go a little thicker than that. So, you can see. So I have a hot pink one, and I'm going to copy and paste it. And I'm going to bring it down to here, and I'm going to change that to, you know, purple. Okay. Now I'm going to show you that align tool. The align tool I use all the time because I can't ever tell if these are actually, actually perpendicular to each other. So if you highlight two objects, your option toolbar at the top changes. So it shows you what way you want to center it. Do you want it to align to the right, to the left? For this one, it doesn't really matter. I'm just going to click on one because they're the same line size because I copied and pasted it. But at least it tells me now that I know it's either centered or justified, whatever you need. Okay. There's also under Window is Align, the actual toolbox that'll pop up and give you some more options if you don't see what you want in the actual option toolbar. If you're ever looking for something, you see a tutorial and you're watching a tutorial that says to get something, a palette that they had already up on their screen when they were doing the tutorial, it's under Window. So if you're ever missing something or they're talking about something, it's under Window. I know it doesn't make sense. You want to go under View because you would think View Gradient, right? And it would pop up. It's not under View, it's under Window. So anytime you're missing something, a palette or a tool, it's under Window. Okay? So Window is your friend. So the first thing I'm going to do is come in here to File, and I'm sorry, I lied. I'm going to Object, Blend, and I'm not going to hit Make because I haven't set it up yet. So I have to go to Blend Options. So usually the default is smooth color, right? But I'm actually going to come in here and say Specified Steps. I'm going to say 10. I'm going to say OK. Nothing happens. It's because I haven't said Make yet. I just set it up that first time. So now I'm going to go to Object, Blend, Make, and it did a gradient line all the way through. All right, something simple. Now I could come in here and group it. Control G, I believe. Okay, and maybe I apply this to a shape or underneath a letter. Or, why is it not liking me right now? Okay, that's where it looks more like the blend when I shrunk it down. So there was a couple options in that beforehand or before I hit Specified Steps. But blending is something that can turn your logo into pretty cool. And it doesn't have to be straight lines. Like I did two curved lines here. And they're not that pretty, but I should have finished this off a little bit so it looked more like a leaf or something. It does help if you have a strong colors change, okay? So if you have yellow to like a orange, sometimes you can't see those steps as much, just depending on what you're working on. Trying to think what else I would use for. Mostly you're going to be working with shapes, honestly. That's right, or text. So shape and text. Object expand up here is going to be your friend. That's how you expand out your text. So you can make it a shape, so you can doodle with it. I'm trying to think of what else. Crash course in Illustrator. Oh, okay, so come in here. So maybe I want a drop shadow effect. There is a drop shadow effect under effects, but it's really fuzzy, okay? And when you're working with anything, you want it to be crisp line. So I'm actually going to come in here and copy and paste this object. I'm going to come in here and highlight this, maybe just make it black. Sometimes I even add a stroke, so it's a little bit bigger than the other one. And now I need to say Object Arrange, send it back. Now I have this one, and I'm going to put it on top. Offset it a little bit, and it kind of gives it a three-dimensional look, okay? And maybe instead of black, I use a gray, so it looks like it is more of a drop shadow. But that's something really simple, just copying and pasting something on top, changing the color on the bottom to add dimension to your logo. In the module itself, there's like a gazillion videos. Where am I at? If you come in here to the logo design bootcamp, if it pops up, it's almost overwhelming how many are in here. Pick a few. Don't sit there and watch 26 videos. It will take you, you'll be watching them from once you leave here until we get back here on next Monday. So kind of look at them and see what looks cool to you. Watch a couple, try to do a couple, okay, even if it doesn't have to be related to your topic. For your logo design, FYI, when we do InDesign, we're going to be using that logo to create a business, okay, collection. So we'll be using it for a business card and envelope, and so you're going to be seeing it again. So maybe put some time into it, so you can kind of see that progress. Again, if you got to the InDesign project and you hate your logo, I'm not going to tell you you have to keep it. You can change it, but just know that we will be using it later for your logo part. Again, logos are simple. It shouldn't be complex. Any questions, comments, concerns? I know I just like babbled on for like ever. Luckily, you can go back to this video and hit pause. Remember, it's on BB Collaborate. All right. YouTube is going to be your friend. Illustrator, I think, is way simpler than Photoshop, honestly. I usually start out in my high school classes. We start out with Illustrator and then we go to Photoshop. But here, their curriculum is Photoshop first and Illustrator. But I think it's going to be a simpler balance for you because it's shapes, text. That's something you've used in Word. Okay. It's not, you're not working with a bunch of layers. You're not having to do multiple steps like Photoshop. You do something and then you have to do 3 more things to it in order to work, right? Here it's pretty much instant gratification. Use the eraser tool, it erases. That's what you wanted to do. All right? You copy and paste. That's what you wanted to do. You're not going anywhere where you have to do multiple steps in order for your design to kind of play out. I highly recommend, again, sketching out as much as you can until you are sick of it. If you want to submit multiple logos to me, that's fine, like on one artboard, please. Just know that for submission, you must turn in an Illustrator file and a JPEG. So in order to export this out, I would need to say File. Where is it now? Save As. I don't know if it's under Save As anymore. They've changed it on me a couple times. You can do Save As and do PDF. That's fine. It's usually under Export. What did they change it to now? You see Save for Web in here? What did they change it to? Oh, Export. They changed it to Export. All right. So Export, Save for Web, and over here you should see the JPEG option. Okay. Then you hit Save. If you have multiple artboards, you have to do it multiple times. It doesn't only saves one artboard at a time. Since I was on this artboard, it saved that artboard. Now if I came over here and clicked into this artboard and did the same thing and did File, Export, Save for Web, and now I have that one for JPEG. So just know that if you have multiple artboards and you're working with multiple artboards, you'd have to save as JPEG how many artboards you have.
Isn't there a JPEG option in Save As?
Not for Illustrator. Only in Photoshop. I don't know. It's a new option. I'm just going with what I'm used to. So again, I'm sure File, Save, Export, JPEG. It would be, yeah. So JPEG is an option on that one too. So again, you could try it. I just know it used to be just File, Save As, File, Save for Web. That was the only choice in Illustrator. But now it's the newest version. They like to change things up on us and make you hunt and find stuff. But it does the same thing. As long as it's JPEG or PDF, something where it won't mess up when I open it, just in case. Because, for example, if you go and download some different fonts on your computer, which I highly recommend, and I open up your Illustrator file and it's not expanded out, it'll just turn it into like Times New Roman. All right? I won't be able to see it. That's why I have to have that JPEG so I can kind of flip back and forth to see what it was supposed to look like. Any other questions? No, let's see. Went ahead, stop on here, because I forgot to hit stop last week, and it went on for like 45 minutes after class. It's awesome.